Arnab Goswami on the debate.
On the show tonight, why China has double standards and why Xi Jinping must first declare who was Mao's reincarnation before claiming that he will decide who the Dalai Lama's reincarnation will be. At 8:30 tonight, why there is violence once again during Muharram processions and why this was completely avoidable and the secularati won't talk about it. At 9 o'clock tonight, Bilawal Bhutto in big trouble after he says that Hafiz Saeed should be handed over to India. And first, ladies and gentlemen, we need to call out China's double standards. China is being extremely hypocritical. It has double standards. It's a country that does not believe in religion. And yet it is getting hyper and going ahead saying that it is going to decide who the Dalai Lama's reincarnation is going to be. Now, they've been getting very, very hot under the collar and trying to threaten people and saying that if India tries to interfere in the process of the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, it's not going to be good, blah, 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 blah. Now, the point is this, and I'm addressing the Chinese. How can anyone decide where the Dalai Lama is going to be reborn apart from the Dalai Lama himself? And if they're so interested in deciding everyone's reincarnation, then maybe Xi Jinping should start, and I mean it, I address every person in China. Every citizen in China should rise up in revolt against Xi Jinping unless Xi Jinping declares who Mao's reincarnation is. And whether it is the Chinese Communist Party that has been suppressing who Mao's reincarnation is. Because every Chinese premier is worried that Mao's reincarnation will take over their job. For that matter, maybe Xi Jinping should also announce who Deng Xiaoping's reincarnation is. If they're so interested in deciding who Dalai Lama's reincarnation is, then they should begin with Mao. Now, does Xi Jinping have the courage to do that? He does not. My second point tonight is this: there's no point trying to interfere in matters that are not your business. And this is to the Chinese. I would say keep your self-respect and go home. You're going to be embarrassing yourself. And I hope this video reaches the Chinese, despite all the attempts of the Chinese government to suppress information that may awaken their people. I would like to tell the Chinese people, please tell your government to stop embarrassing itself like it had done when it tried to interfere in the abrogation of an Article 370, which we did to fully integrate Kashmir with India. That's none of your business, Xi Jinping. And in 2019, when our Prime Minister visits Arunachal Pradesh, they have problems. It's no problem. I don't understand. We don't talk to and tell Xi Jinping when he has to go to Shanghai or not. Arunachal Pradesh is as much a part of India as Shanghai is a part of China. But a broader message needs to go to the Chinese. This is a new India. Don't try and talk down to us. Don't try and create trouble with us, because you're going to be creating trouble for yourself. The second point is, and logically speaking, the Chinese government is anti-religion. It does not believe in religion. It imposes restrictions on religion. Religion is tightly controlled. Religious groups are closely under a watch. That is the ideology of the Chinese Communist Party. It is officially an atheist nation. How does an atheist nation want to decide what is a purely, innately religious process, such as the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama? That's so hypocritical. That's so wrong. I think unless Xi Jinping says that Buddhism is going to be the state religion of China and we are not going to be an atheist country, a communist country, he should not talk. Secondly, even within the restricted framework of religion within China, the bottom line is the Chinese branch of Buddhism does not believe in reincarnation. Chinese Buddhism is very different from Tibetan Buddhism. Chinese Buddhism is called Han Buddhism. It does not include a reincarnation system. Now, unless Xi Jinping wants to change the essentials of Han Buddhism, he cannot do something which says, my government, which does not believe in reincarnation, Chinese Buddhism, which does not believe in reincarnation, now wants to have IP rights and a patent over the process of reincarnation. That's unacceptable. As I said, first, Xi Jinping should declare who the reincarnation is of Deng Xiaoping, who died in 1997, and why Xi Jinping has suppressed that information, or for that matter, who the reincarnation of Mao is, who died in 1976. Now, why the Chinese are getting so worked up is because China invaded Tibet in 1950. This is 2025. At that time, the Dalai Lama was 15 years old. Today, he's 90 years old. And he's saying, I'm going to decide where I'm going to be reincarnated. This entire controversy is actually, I would say, reminding the Chinese of their failure to crush the spirit of the Tibetan people, the independent spirit, the fighting spirit, the ideologically unswerving spirit of the Tibetan people, which generations before and generations after Xi Jinping will continue to try to crush, and they will fail. So Xi Jinping knows that he's been an utter failure. He can't do anything on Taiwan. He cannot do anything on Tibet. His time is running out. His economy is falling. He's fighting with the Americans. He's fighting with everyone. He's unpopular even in the global south. And India has always stood by Tibet, and all the suppression of the Tibetans has failed. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are a few straight questions to the Chinese. Don't poke your business in other people's affairs. And Tibet is not your business. Not your business. This message is to the Chinese. Please spread it so it reaches the Chinese Communist Party and they understand where not to cross the line.
Happy 90th birthday, Your Holiness. The world is forever grateful.
His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama turned 90 years old yesterday, and the entire nation joined Dharamshala in the festivities. Union Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Minority Affairs Kiran Rijiju alongside Union Minister Rajiv Ranjan were in attendance to wish His Holiness along with the Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh.
His Holiness' teachings have influenced our governance philosophy. We draw inspirations from his principles of compassion and non-violence in shaping policies that promote harmony and collective well-being.
However, the Chinese were not at all pleased by India's unwavering support to the Dalai Lama. They even objected to the Prime Minister extending birthday wish to His Holiness.
我们希望印方充分认识到摄藏问题的高度敏感性，认清14世达赖的反华分裂本质，恪守在摄藏问题上的承诺，谨言慎行，停止利用摄藏问题干涉中国内政，避免影响中印关系的改善和发展。
China's strong reaction comes just days after the Dalai Lama broke his silence on the reincarnation question and said that the institution of Dalai Lama will continue. India's position on the matter is very clear.
Dalai Lama institution is purely religious, and I have come here as a devotee, and it is a religious matter. And Government of India believes that there should be no interference into the religious matter. I don't want to react on the Chinese statement, but my position is very clear that we leave everything to His Holiness Dalai Lama for his guidance.
But China is up in arms, especially against the Tibetan government in exile.
所谓西藏流亡政府是一个分裂主义的政治集团，惯于编造涉藏的谣言谎言，没有任何公信力可言。活佛转世是藏传佛教特有的传承方式，达赖、班禅等大活佛转世都是按照严密的宗教仪轨和历史定制，根据国内寻访、金瓶撤迁、中央政府批准的原则开展的。
With the dragon fearing of losing its control over the Tibetan narrative, with the Dalai Lama choosing his reincarnation to be born outside Tibet, the Dalai Lama has put China in a tough spot. The only question remains, with China repeatedly interfering in India's internal matters and violating territorial sovereignty of India with CPEC, illegal occupation of Shaksham Valley and Aksai Chin, and illegal renaming in Arunachal Pradesh, why is the dragon so scared of the sacred Buddhist monk?
Here we are joined this evening by Penpa Sering. He's the elected head of the Tibetan government in exile. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Sik Kyong of the Central Tibetan Administration. Mr. Sering, thank you very much. Thank you. You hold immense power.
Thank you for having me.
And you are truly the representative of the Tibetan people. How do you view China's nervousness about the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama?
I think that is the power of nonviolence and truth combined together, and with persistence. The nonviolence is a means to resolve all kind of conflicts. If you look at the violent conflicts that are going on around the world today, you don't know whether you are really resolving one problem or you are creating more problems for future. So nonviolence as a means is very powerful, and when you have truth on your side, historical truth on your side, then it really jitters the Chinese, because they are on very thin ground when it comes to the historical status of Tibet, the continued repression of the Tibetans inside Tibet, destruction of the Tibetan people's identity, the language that came from India, the Tibetan language came from India, Devanagari script in 7th century, and we transliterated almost every available Sanskrit and Pali Buddhist text from 8th to 13th century before Buddhism almost vanished out of India. So we are proud to be one part of ancient Indian wisdom, and that even that China claims that it came from China, which is totally false claim of the origin of Tibetan Buddhism, even though Buddhism did spread to China much before it spread to India some 3-4 centuries before. But the Tibetan Buddhism that we practice in Tibet is the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism here in India. So we are proud to be a repository of one part of ancient Indian wisdom, and all these, I think, angles of...
they're issuing threats, Mr. Sering. They're almost sounding violent in their language. You talk about non-violence. However, they say their argument is that the Chinese Communist Party will decide the reincarnation as per Chinese law. Now, there was no Chinese Communist Party in ancient Buddhist tradition. So I don't know where the logic is, but they claim that only the Chinese premier has the right to decide the next Dalai Lama. Is there anything historical or by precedent which can, sort of strengthen their claim? I find none.
Yeah, there are three claims that China is making. One, that they will look for His Holiness reincarnation within China or within Tibet. And there you already have cases of the third Dalai Lama being born in Mongolia. You have the sixth Dalai Lama born in India, in Tawang. So you have earlier Dalai Lamas who have been born outside Tibet. So that is, again, a false claim that they should look for only. That is why the response from His Holiness is that he will be born in a free world. The second thing the Chinese government says is that they should use the golden urn Now, golden urn was introduced only in 1793 when there was some influence of the Manchus over the Tibetans way back in 1793. But there were 8 Dalai Lamas before 1793, and there were Dalai Lamas up to the 14th. So does the Chinese government to say that the 8 Dalai Lamas before 1793 were not Dalai Lamas? In that case, that was the real tradition of how we select the Dalai Lamas. Chinese interfered, but even then it was a Qing dynasty and they were Buddhists. But right now, the government that wants to interfere in the selection of what they call as living Buddhas or reincarnated Lamas in our case is completely absurd.
Do you think the Tibetans, will face more repression, more violence from the Chinese? I mean, those who are there under Chinese occupation, Chinese after the invasion. Do you think the Tibetans there will face more repression? Because the Chinese have killed so many Tibetans over the years. All those who resist them have been killed and imprisoned, and they've been, estimates are up to 100,000 Tibetans killed. Lhasa is under curfew. Do you think things will get worse going forward with the Tibetans who are under Chinese occupation?
So far, the Tibetans have remained non-violent. It's mainly because His Holiness restrains them from taking up violence, because His Holiness says that if you take up violence, then I will no more be responsible for... we often get asked question whether Tibetans will get radicalized because of too much repression from the Chinese side. That's very much possible. If this 14th Dalai Lama has to die in exile, I think that will strike a lot of emotions within Tibet, and there will be nobody else to control the Tibetans inside Tibet as much as His Holiness used to do so. So we are afraid of what could be the consequences if His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has to die in exile.
Well, we wish him a long life. And we wish an end to Chinese repression.
His Holiness is committed to living long. He keeps reassuring us that he will live for 2 decades and more. And in the last 1-2 months, he has been saying, I'll live up to 130. So I keep telling the Chinese, this message is for you. You're waiting for this Dalai Lama to die.
It's so terrible to behave like this,
Very long.
Wish him a long life.
We have to decide now.
They should wish him a long life, but they're so insecure.
Whether communism outlives His Holiness or His Holiness outlives His Holiness, that is something we have to watch out.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Sering. Thank you very much. That's the President of the Tibetan government in exile, Penpa Sering, joining us this evening. We have Einar Tangen from Beijing. He's a senior fellow at the Taipei Institute. We have Yeshi Dawa. He's joining us from McLeodganj, which is the center of the Tibetan government in exile. And we have General Sudhakarji, who is a very well-known defense expert, joining us from Jaipur. To start with you, Einar, China does not believe in religion, and there are many restrictions on religion, and it's oxymoronic, therefore, to interfere in a process which is religious, and therefore I don't understand how this interference can happen. I mean, you don't believe in religion, why get into a religious process which you discount?
Well, I think the Beijing sees this as political. I mean, let's take a look at...
Then why get into a religious process?
Excuse me?
You said you see it as political, but the reincarnation process is not a political process.
Oh, really? Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about Buddhism today. It dropped 19 million between 2010 and 20, resulting in 324 million followers. China has the largest number of Buddhists. Within China, 4% identify formally as Buddhists. They put that down on paper and have not been arrested. But a much larger percentage, up to 16%, believe in Buddha. There are 3 main existing branches of Buddhism, as you know: Theravada, Vajrayana, and Mahayana. Mahayana, which is the one that the Dalai Lama belongs to, has 185 million followers out of that larger number. But because of splits and geographical differences, even within Tibet, which has only 2.2 million Tibetans, it's much, much less, because there are 5 different colors of Buddhism, and there are very, very different beliefs, although he is definitely recognized as one of the most influential leaders in Buddhism itself. He was chosen by the Golden Urn process. So if you say it's not a legitimate process, well, then you can say that he's not legitimate. In terms of, the overall tone, if I had said what you said about Xi Jinping, about Narendra Modi, you would say you're off the line, that you're being disrespectful. And I think that's something that we think. If don't call other people out in ways that are so nasty, if you don't want the same thing for your own leaders. And I don't think it helps. I understand your point. You wanted to make it clear that you don't think that China should be involved in religious doctrines. Well, the fact is that the Dalai Lama, the search for the next Dalai Lama, is generally conducted by the Panchen Lama, and that's history. So if you don't want to rely on that, you can do what you want. But the idea that the Dalai Lama himself, who says he's going to live to 140, is going to have a Swiss registered organization choose the next Dalai Lama, is a little bit of a conceit. He's not the leader of the Tibet of his religion. He is certainly an important figure in it, but he doesn't decide these things.
No. Okay, so I heard you. Thank you. 1995, why did the Chinese abduct the 11th Panchen Lama, if you believed in that process? Point one, that's where you're completely off the line. Second point is, I believe that if you believe that it's the responsibility of the Chinese Communist Party to declare reincarnations, I do not believe I'm out of line in asking, would you please tell us, why has the Chinese Communist Party not declared the reincarnation of Mao? That's not disrespectful.
Well, I don't know. They're not Buddhists.
So only Buddhists get reincarnated, according to you?
Well,
or a non-Buddhist decides, the reincarnation of Buddhists.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying that. Are you saying that only Buddhists get reincarnated according to the Communist Party?
Well, the Communist Party doesn't believe in reincarnation.
Then if you don't believe in it, then why do you want to? How can it control a process it does not believe in?
Okay, so it does believe that it is in control of the territory that it's in, and that the matters in Tibet are internal, just like India believes that matters are internal to it, which others do not.
So do you believe that reincarnations, the Chinese, so you're saying here that the Chinese Communist Party, which does not believe in religion, which does not believe in reincarnation, believes, however, that reincarnation happens within political boundaries?
No, they believe that the selection of the head, well, let me finish. They believe that the selection of the head of this particular sect within Buddhism should not be done by one individual.
But here's the thing. You see, the
outside
Chinese
and who is against their government. This is very practical. I mean, I'm surprised you failed to understand it. It's very simple.
I'm surprised that you don't know the basics of the Chinese Buddhist faith, because Yeshi can tell you this. Han Buddhism does not believe in reincarnation. This Chinese form of Buddhism, which most Chinese follow, who you call Buddhist, does not believe in reincarnation.
No, there you're clearly wrong. There's no such thing as Han Buddhism. They follow Mahayana Buddhism in China, as does
But Buddhism is not a Chinese origin, so obviously you must understand it's of Indian origin.
Your idea that you know exactly what's going on in China is false. You can't say, there's no such thing. Look up Han Buddhism. There's nothing in the dictionary that says that.
Let me get in.
You're making this up to make it a partisan issue.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that China does not. My essential point is.
Point of view.
I'll get in Yeshi on this. My essential point is this, that China does not believe in religion. China does not believe in reincarnation.
Yes.
And to control a process that you consider illegitimate is a bit contradictory, and I'd like Yeshi to throw in his point of view from McLeodganj. Yeshi, you heard Einar Tangen. How are you viewing this?
Arnab, the gentleman on the other side rightly confesses that the Communist Party of China does not believe in reincarnation. If that is the case, then why are they interfering in the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama? And they would definitely claim that it is their right to choose the next Dalai Lama through Golden Urn system. But if you look at the history of Golden Urn system, it was imposed on Tibet in 1793 by Manchu Empire. And if you look at the Manchu Empire, Emperor then, he was a devout Buddhist follower. So that is not the case with the current CCP leadership. They don't believe in religion. The very founding member of CCP who notoriously told that religion is a poison. So that is the number one. And if you talk about the golden urn system, it is a very corrupted practice. If you look at the case of how they chose China's 11th Panchen Lama, so we all know that the then Bureau of Religious Affairs, Ye Xiaowen, who told Ajahn Rinpoche how they corrupted that practice and how they specifically aimed to choose the Gensen Nobu. So are we going to allow the Chinese Communist Party to choose the next Dalai Lama in this way? Because we all know that it is a corrupted practice.
Einar, that's Yeshi Dewa. He's a fantastic researcher, understands the religion.
I'm sure he is. But the fact is,
he throws a question at you.
As religion and hypocritical. I think from the Beijing side, they see this as purely political.
No,
right?
that is a wrong thing.
You're arguing apples. They're arguing oranges.
No. We're not arguing. We're not. See. This is where I feel. If you don't mind, Einar, sorry to interrupt you again. I think the problem here is that China has a condescending approach towards religion. It calls religion apples and oranges. Religion is deep. You may not be religious. The Chinese may not be religious. But the 14th Dalai Lama, who you have been unable to crush, right, was identified as a reincarnation when he was 2 years old. That search was made after a vision by a monk. That search, that vision of the monk, that monk was not a member of the Chinese Communist Party. He had nothing to do with the Chinese leadership. He was not political. You see, I believe that there are some areas where we must leave it to higher purpose. And I appeal to the Chinese not to disrespect the Buddhist faith, the Buddhist way of life by doing this. And also, if you're calling it political, General Sudhakarji would like to give you a counter perspective from Jaipur. General Sudhakarji, your response to Einar, please.
Well, Arnab, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show, and compliments to very distinguished panelists. Allow me to talk rather very frankly. Let me start by saying, as a student of geopolitics, strategy and security, I'm more than convinced that Tibet was never part of the People's Republic of China. It was invaded in the year 50. And let me take the mind of our viewers back to a date, 23rd May 1951. A 17-point agreement was signed. Suffice to say, keeping in view the time restrictions in your channel, I must compliment you, Arnab, for highlighting that aspect of 1995, Dalai Lama named Gedun Choki Niga as the Panchen Lama, 11th Panchen Lama. He was rejected by China and they replaced him. He was abducted. He's still missing. They replaced him with a person whom they wanted. Basically, what does it highlight? It highlights that China does not believe in any religion. China does not have a system of considering any belief system. It's an atheist state. Cynicism, when we talk about cynicism, what does it mean? It means that China would prefer to convert all religions into Chinese religion. So the Chinese religion, talk about Xinjiang province or Tibet, these are the two areas which are surfacing or facing dissent. The biggest threat for China today, when you talk in terms of political realm, is the dissent within China itself. It's not the external threat. It is not the threat from USA. China would do well as a rising global power by 2049, rejuvenate the Middle Kingdom by the timeline, or before that, provided it holds together. I am fearing that there is going to be a collapse of the internal system at the administration if they do not respect and accept the belief system based on which a Tibetan religion has actually grown. They invaded, they captured Tibet. Tibet was never part, we never had a border with China. We had a border with the Tibet to the east. And to the west, we had border with the East Turkestan. And last but not the least, if you allow me, is that when you talk about the religion, the incarnation is a process it's a religious process. That religious process, the 14th Dalai Lama, I was reading a book today written by some Chinese research scholar. They claim that the 14th Dalai Lama has been actually selected purely out of the golden urn process. No. I'm a student of geopolitics. I'm also a historian. I'm convinced that he has gone through the process of reincarnation. My friend from Dharamshala, he will bear me out, who represents the Tibetan philosophy. Golden urn is a narrative which has been built by China by and by, taking advantage of the history. This has to be understood by our viewers. Then only you'll get the right perspective. So therefore, suffice to say, why only us? US has gone in for making a policy. A legislature has been actually formulated way back in 2020, wherein they have said that it's a process. Reincarnation is the process of religious practice of this belief system.
Actually, it's interesting. Yeah, China is just saying we have the right, but they have nothing to prove they ever have the right. Buddhism predates the People's Republic of China or the Chinese Communist Party. So, chronologically, it's not making any sense here, Einar, and people are getting upset. They believe that you're getting involved in a process that is beyond the realm of the Communist Party. And this is not the way the 14th Dalai Lama was. And why disrespect the 14th Dalai Lama? Why disrespect him?
Should I just hang up? You're not going to let me talk.
I'm asking you. You must not get irritated.
You keep asking questions, but you don't come to an end. You just keep making statements.
You can place your point of view, Einar, but don't get angry if you're being countered.
All right, I'm not being countered. You're talking apples and oranges. And here you want to talk about an irony. Here are Hindus talking about another religion that they don't believe in. And quite frankly, the Hindus were not too friendly to the Buddhists in past years. And I mean many years ago, when they were basically drummed out of India. So this idea that you hold this spiritual thing sacred, when in fact you don't believe in it yourself, is equally as hypocritical as you're trying to say that Chinese don't believe in it. We're talking about politics today. And that's the way Beijing sees it. You can see it however you want. It's convenient. But in the end, all right, you have to admit this is about succession. And succession is about power. And that is exactly how Beijing sees it. Now, you're spiritual, yes, but this idea that you're outraged that a religion you don't believe in is being decided by one individual who is not representative of the whole Buddhist religion sounds a little empty to me.
No, Einar, I can only blame your ignorance of both Hinduism and Buddhism, which is understandable. Maybe you know nothing about them. Both Buddhism and Hinduism believe in the principle of reincarnation. There are 9 million Buddhists in our country. And, people from across the world come here to the Sarnath temple. And I think you know nothing about the Buddhist tradition in India. And you are jealous of the fact that Buddhism has spread across the world from India. And see, the bitterness is not. See, I'll tell you, one of the things religion teaches you is not to be bitter.
I respect
but I like your confession. I must confess today, I like the fact that you have confessed that China has only a political intent. See, that is a big thing being spoken here. Yashi, he said we have only a political intent in this. We don't have any religious intent. We have a political intent. And we want to use this for a political purpose. It's a very major statement. Maybe Einar will regret it later.
China?
You said it's a political process for us. It's not reincarnation is not political. Reincarnation is not political. Don't do this.
Well, who decides who's being reincarnated is?
But you don't decide. The Communist Party does not decide who is getting reincarnated. Now, this is getting absurd, Einar, by your own...
And the Hindu religion should decide who is...
No, the Hindu religion does not. The political party in India does not decide reincarnation. Do you think the Bharatiya BJP decides reincarnation?
Then why are you supporting it? Are you supporting a position you don't believe in?
No. Hindus believe in reincarnation, but we don't need a political party to ratify.
No, but you don't believe in the tenets. You have gods. They don't.
Dalai Lama himself believes in the unity
Buddhism,
of... You're making a big
and
mistake here.
Hinduism
You
are
have
completely
just
different.
1 minute.
Are you saying the same?
Einar, see.
That would be very
Why
interesting.
did you get
The
yourself in a
numbers of
fix
Buddhists will
tonight?
go up.
Because you began with a confession that for you, this is all about achieving a political purpose. I appreciate the confession.
Not for me.
This will go viral, this statement across the world. That you came and you said, see, we are only interested in politics. We are not interested in religion. For us, this is a political move by us.
India is
big
interested
statement.
in the politics as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't be supporting a position of a
The Tibetans
religion
are so
it does
happy
not
in
support
India.
or believe in.
You know, so happy, so wonderful. I mean, ask
Having 9
Yeshi.
million Buddhists in India does not equal the same amount as
Yeshi, what?
hundreds of billions in China.
Yeshi, Einar says this is political. Purely political for them.
Yes.
Arnab,
It is political
since China
in
is
India.
so much...
Yes.
Arnab, since China is so much obsessed with the power, if you look at the history, if we can combine Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin, Xi Jinping, if we combine them together, still they couldn't overshadow the power of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama in Tibet and around the world. So that's why they are so much obsessed about the power. And since the gentleman on the other side mentioned about Hindus, I would like to make a very important point here. China snatched Mount Kailash from Tibet. Now, if you look at what is happening with Kailash Yatra, whenever border incursions happen, then they would politicize it. And they would just stop the Kailash Yatra.
Yeah, they do that.
And they would say, let's resume it. Now, are we also going to allow to politicize the institution of Dalai Lama by the Chinese government? So this is a big question that we all have to think.
Yeshi, but we wish him a long life. And I know that will be true. Contrary views tonight, but very interesting. Einar, Yeshi, and Gerald Sudhakar, thank you very much.